Yeah, I'm just getting level.
I'm still waking up a little bit, but yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Did my mic sound fine, by the way?
Yeah, I'm all recording on my end, so I'm good.
My first memory of Dark Souls is the Bartholomew trailer, which was one of the first trailers for Dark Souls, and I remember it because I remember watching that trailer and thinking, this looks like my kind of game.
It's a game that was seemingly made out of things people usually call bad ideas.
I remember complaining that there was no waypoint. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to figure out where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do?
The world kind of seemed a little bit boring to me because it's just you running around in dirt and everything's grimy looking.
I'd played Skyrim before Dark Souls, so I was like, oh yeah, a fantasy game. That's, colorful and green and luscious. Then you get put into Dark Souls and it's like, no, depression.
Dark Souls is an acquired taste.
People would describe their experiences and you would think this is a negative review.
So selling that to people is not an easy task, and I failed repeatedly at it. So the smarter thing for me to do was just to buy the game repeatedly and give it to people.
First time I played it, it was more just a kind of, oh fine, I'll give it a go then.
My first experience playing Dark Souls was, I think, like a lot of people, it was being squashed immediately by the Asylum Demon.
That gave me a heart attack at first.
I feel like I remember doing the plunge, that takes basically half its health away and still not being able to do it.
To be honest with you, there's a lot of butt in your face right off the get-go. It's kind of slow and it pretty much just sits on you. That's one of the things that it does. And the entire time you kind of got to stay on the booty to beat it. So that's pretty much the whole process, is looking at the butt cheeks and yeah.
The first time I saw a big chunk of my health bar just vanish, I was just like, oh no.
Got up to the Capra Demon, I got in the room and I was dead within 5 seconds. And I thought, I'm never playing this fucking game ever again.
Fighting the Capra Demon on the train, I got so into it and I very narrowly defeated him with a slither of health left, and I was so excited that I kind of kicked out in that excitement of the moment and struck the man that was sat opposite me right in the shin, but I didn't care because I'd beaten Capra Demon.
It's a challenging game, but fair.
In a way that makes you come to accept it first and then appreciate it afterwards.
It's almost like a religious experience where you're totally engrossed.
What seems completely impossible the first time round gradually becomes more and more possible.
It's so fun to look back into and see the things that you got stuck at that now you can do effortlessly. And I think there's something so universal about that.
Most action games, I feel so overpowered. And the fact that the things actually are as dangerous as they look in Dark Souls was a really cool feeling.
So any moment where you say you're getting back to the hub area, you unlock a shortcut, is suddenly it represents a big help. My favorite moment of the game, it was such a great moment. It was when you loop back to Firelink Shrine from lower Undead Burg.
You find a ladder and you're like, well, why is this ladder, what's this for? And then you kick the ladder down and go down to see the bonfire, and then you realize, oh god, it's the beginning of the area.
It was just overwhelming amount of emotions of wait, it's all connected.
I had this moment where all of a sudden,
especially because you can't warp in Dark Souls. At least you can't warp in Dark Souls until way later in the game. So it made that linking that much more amazing of a moment.
In other games, those shortcuts don't hit the same.
You realize that everything has a purpose and a place and a pathway.
It's all intertwined and designed in a way that was kind of mind-blowing.
I love that moment. It's so good.
I am very glad.
Favorite NPC is...
They're all miserable.
It's got to be Onion Knight.
You gotta love the thick, fat rolling boy.
Just this really happy, kind of go-lucky guy in this really desolate and depressing world.
I'm not going to say Solaire because everybody says Solaire.
It's got to be Solaire. Everyone loves Solaire for some jolly cooperation.
Always, no matter what, always go down those little stairs to go give him a little visit. Just stare at the sun with him. Just have a nice old time.
He is encouraging jolly cooperation. he's optimistic, and it's such a refreshing character to, you know, be in this game.
If I didn't know better, I'd think you had feelings for me.
I'm gonna have to give it to Lautrec, because every time you talk to him, he's like, yeah, help me get out of this prison cell, and I'll make it worth your while. And you're like, okay.
Patches! Who was expecting that answer? Nobody. I like the fact that he tries to f with you all the time. It's hilarious. It cracks me up. He's such an asshole, and it's amazing. And I'm so glad he's in every game, because he is the worst and best at the same time.
I will never forget when he pushed me off a ledge into darkness. I'll never forget it.
This is what I do, my friend.
Chester, Marvelous Chester. I firmly believe that he slipped in through a fissure. He gets grabbed by the hand, and he's from Yharnam. He's got the top hat. He's got a trick crossbow. He's wearing the hunter's set. He talks like a Yharnamite. I see the connection.
Does it really matter?
Framped, because nothing that looks like him should have his voice. Nothing that looks like him should legally be allowed to have flaps coming out of his lips. He shouldn't be allowed to put you in his mouth. Everything about him is disgusting and wrong, but also incredible, and I love him.
Those who seek the realm of lords must brave Sen's fortress.
The player reaches Sen's fortress after they have rung the 2 bells of awakening. Then you're told that you first have to traverse this house of horrors.
It's just so weird and filled with traps. I think it's so fun.
Everything about it is just great. And it's also like the very final step you have to take before reaching Anor Londo.
Anor Londo all the way, baby. That's like one of the iconic all-time moments in gaming history, I think.
It was quite an experience. Just, I think emotionally it was a hit, but also visually it was amazing.
Anor Londo looks like a beautiful Spanish cathedral while it's still new.
The aesthetic of it as a whole and all the architecture and how like glorious it looked was great.
Then you hit Ornstein Smough.
You enter the room, you hear the music.
You see 5 seconds of these 2 dudes introducing themselves, and that's all you need to know.
As soon as that cutscene drops, Ornstein just dashes at you.
Ornstein, like a rocket, just comes shooting in between pillars like a Dragon Ball Z character.
I was gaining confidence, then they threw this thing out of left field. We have 2 bosses at one time, and I did not expect that.
There's 2 bosses, and they're functioning independently of each other.
This was the true roadblock of the game with Ornstein and Smough. This is the get good moment.
Ornstein and Smough is a boss that I hate about as much as I love, and I bet a lot of other players say that too.
Oh, I hated it. I hated fighting Ornstein and Smough. They were so tough.
There's literally a whole video documenting how many times I said during that fight. Motherfucker! No! No!
I definitely thought this is unfair the first time I fought him.
You know, like the first time you kill one of them and all it does is make the other one more powerful and refill all their health, you're just like, why are you doing this to me? This is so stupid.
Are you...
That's also like the most Dark Souls thing ever. It's just so good. It's just so good.
Put your feet up, because you're gonna be here for at least the next 5 hours.
When you finally get to the moment where you beat them, that's when that cascading of everything that you've been holding in for so long just falls out.
I actually felt like we'd accomplished something.
Everyone who's played Dark Souls will remember probably the moment that they beat Ornstein and Smough.
I did it on my first try. I'm not even trying to brag. Hardest fight in the game? No, I don't agree in the slightest.
I love how Dark Souls bosses look like they should just be able to step on you, but they don't.
The Taurus demon ended up jumping off of his arena and dying, like instantly. Oh! I didn't even fight him.
I think my favorite boss in Dark Souls is actually the bell gargoyles.
It is the first time in that game where you're presented with two bosses at the same time.
As soon as people beat the gargoyle, it creates a feeling that you can go on to beat the rest of the game.
My favorite boss in Dark Souls is probably Artorias.
Being able to see Artorias was kind of like a big one for me.
He was just amazing and stunning in all of his glory.
He's a literal legend, and I'm fighting a literal legend.
Everyone loves Artorias, and I'm not hating on him. I love him. He's probably the best sword boss in that game. He's got to be. But Manus, with the eyes and the extra long arm, he's just such a beast. I couldn't believe what I've been seeing.
What a presence and event that whole entire fight is, not only from a gameplay standpoint, but from a lore standpoint.
As you progress, as with all the Souls games, you discover that not everything is what it seems. You discover the biggest betrayal of all. You meet Guinevere, and you're like, I made it. I am the prince. I am the hero. Turns out she's fake.
Miyazaki almost will do this thing in his games where like you'll unlock something or find a secret world or like get access to something in a way that almost feels like a fake thing that you read online somewhere. It's stuff that doesn't seem like it would make sense, but then when it happens, you're just like, oh. Ash Lake is another one.
It might be very small, but I don't know. I just feel like it feels like a hidden away little secret.
You hit one illusionary wall and then you go and then you have to hit another one.
To find this giant hollowed out tree that you go down, and then music all of a sudden kicks in, which is nowhere else in the game for the most part, which just makes it that much more awe-inspiring.
Just a really cool place to experience and discover for the first time.
Especially when the music kicks in, it's just like, wah, wah. It's amazing. I love Ash Lake.
I will stick the up for Blighttown. People hate Blighttown. I think it's one of the coolest bits of the game.
The first low point I remember in Dark Souls is Blighttown, which is probably a lot of people's first terrible place.
It is a Jenga block tower of the worst shit imaginable stacked on top of each other. And at one point in the game, your job is basically to get from the top of it to the bottom of it.
Oh, I'll tell you my least favorite bit. The bottom of Blighttown, if that's a separate area, if you can count that.
You just said you liked Blighttown. You're standing up for it.
The bottom of it.
Before that was the depths, because I'm pretty sure I got cursed.
Everyone talks about Blighttown as being like this, like the worst place in the game, and it's this horrible poison swamp and all this kind of stuff. But even to get to Blighttown, you have to go through the depths.
I was one of the lucky people that once I went into the depths, which is this seaward level, where literally anything and everything will kill you, I got cursed, which is a really rough status effect in this game. And that might have been the only point where I was like, okay, maybe I'm really doing something wrong.
Honestly, it's like, anytime you talk about it, you're like, oh, it's such an amazing game. Every part of it is incredible, except Blighttown. And then past Blighttown, there's a bit in the lava that's just fucking terrible. And then, but overall, it's a masterpiece.
I played it online, so I did play the PvP, but not willingly.
It's pretty rude when people can just invade you, and
I hated every minute of it.
I did play a lot of the PvP in Dark Souls. And I apologize because I was an asshole.
Getting that adrenaline rush when someone would invade your game was so cool, and I loved it.
Invading someone else's world and being able to ruin their day.
I've got 20,000 souls. Can you just, like...
I was the awful person who did like a really low soul level run, and I was invading like Undead Parish. I was making my own fun in Dark Souls PvP, but it was mostly bullying.
But that's Dark Souls.
Do I have a favorite piece of music from Dark Souls?
I feel like this question is targeted at me.
The pretty background music that plays when you're at Firelink Shrine. I don't know, maybe just because I've spent a lot of time there, it just kind of soothes my soul.
But I don't love the Firelink Shrine music because it's just music. It's because it's an ambience. It's a mood. It's a theme. It's a narrative.
This is where I feel good. This is where I feel safe. It's my home.
The one that jumps into my mind at first is the initial song that plays when you fight the Asylum Demon at the beginning. I'm currently in the process of creating a mod called LobosJR where I replace every single piece of audio in the game with my mouth sounds. I bet a lot of the answers would be Gwen's theme.
The Gwyn music.
100% Gwen.
Not just because I heard it many, many, many times.
Just affectionately referred to as Plin Plin Plon.
It would be what, the Plin Plon Plon?
I feel it's pretty iconic at this point, and I still go back and listen to that.
How's Gwen's theme go? Parry him, stab him.
Miyazaki's really big on making these really big orchestral, almost like operatic compositions. Because he has like his composer that he works with. But I think that the Gwen one's so powerful because there's like nothing.
That piano is basically how Gwyn really feels, which is that he's almost pathetic, but still putting up a fight. But the real Gwyn inside of him is like, this again, man? Like, seriously? Actually managing to fight him and get through that fight.
We cried out, "This is for Soulsborne." It was one of the most incredible gaming moments I've ever experienced.
First time playing, when I beat the ending and lit the fire.
This is it?
That's it? What happened?
That can't be it. Can it?
I wanted more of a cutscene. That's honestly what I wanted. I wanted it to be a little bit grander.
It sounds so naive and stupid now, but I guess I was hoping for finally getting some kind of a clear explanation behind things.
I was so confused, and I think that's what compelled me to go look up lore videos online from Epic Name Bro. He's so good.
I loved it. So I linked the fire the first time that I played the game, and when I linked the fire, it clicked.
It's not really a, oh, that's it. It's more of a, oh,
I remember on my Facebook group, the people in it hated the ending. They were like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. And that's actually how I started my YouTube videos, was for people in that PvP group.
So we have Gwen, and he's kind of the center of everything, but he's not the oldest.
I was like recording my forehead with my shitty MacBook camera, being like, no, wait, let me explain this to you guys. Like, well, it's not, it's not a bad ending. Like, I promise, it's actually really good.
It was a different way of telling stories in games that I hadn't seen before. And I like that, because I like when video games tell stories in a way that other mediums can't tell stories.
You really have to change your expectation. In the industry, we call it game learning.
It's a tricky and intricate and complicated story.
Only I know the truth about your fate.
The legacy of Dark Souls is quite an impactful one.
So this is coming from an industry perspective, because I'm working in the industry now. It's changed a lot.
It started a new type of game or a new genre, which is kind of rare.
It's almost like a shorthand. If you say, something is Souls-like, people who play video games know exactly what you mean.
It's kind of a meme in itself that everyone was like comparing, whatever game was coming out to Dark Souls.
Oh, this is, the Dark Souls of shooters, or the Dark Souls of racing games, or the Dark Souls of property management simulators, or whatever.
What's interesting is how many games are described as being like, this feels like it was influenced by Dark Souls, and they're not RPGs. They're not third-person combat games.
It's got to the point where if a game is hard, inevitably there'll be someone that'll be like, ooh, it's like a Dark Souls-like.
Hopefully, its legacy won't just be difficulty, but a good challenge to overcome.
Dark Souls tells you exactly what you need to know,
and then pushes you to go explore and figure stuff out yourself. And I think games used to be more obtuse, and Dark Souls, you know, because especially in now we have Ubisoft, like,
sorry Ubisoft, but you don't have to have the Ubisoft EUI HUD with like all the tutorials and the markers and the, you know, you don't have to have that.
And it's such a immersive style of moving through a game that I think it ended up bleeding over as a habit. I've been turning off HUD features ever since I got into Dark Souls, things like that.
It's more about just putting you in this world and respecting the player.
Putting everything back into the player's hands after a decade or two of, here's what you do, player.
it's kind of responsible for teaching people a whole other language on how to play games. And that's just like scraping the surface. It's one of the most influential games of all time, one of the best games of all time.
I just think it maybe not only leaves a mark in the gaming industry, I think it also leaves a mark in people's lives.
I've got tattoos of a bone wheel skeleton and Onion Bro's head, the Elite Knight armor on my arm. And it's one of the few franchises that I love enough to throw on my body.
I know a lot of people play the Souls games when they're going through a tougher time, and it really does help them get through what they're going through.
That feeling of overcoming obstacles, that feeling of challenge when you're in a low place, can be really helpful.
Emotionally, it's gotten me through a lot of tough experiences in my life because you can just hyper focus on this game and overcoming it.
It has also just taught me not to back down from those challenges.
Be okay with failure and continuing on from failure.
And to persist until you succeed at what you're doing.
We don't necessarily get a rule book on how to figure out life. Some people will say they have one, like some of the people that you encounter within the Dark Souls lore, and they're trying to figure it out, but we ultimately don't know. And we're just trying our best through failure and maybe one day getting that big success that makes us feel like it was all worthwhile.
It's gonna kick your ass. It should, but that's part of the experience. The feeling you get when you overcome something that's taking you hours or days. Man, you don't get that from any other game.
There's nothing like the first experience of playing the first Dark Souls. It's one of the games that I wish I could delete from my memory just so I could play it again. So you'll only get one chance at it, so appreciate it.